Armenians will be heading to the polls in less than a week. I'll be speaking to CivilNet host and analyst Eric Hacopian to break down some of the recent developments. Eric, thanks for your time.
It's a pleasure.
So Eric, we're a week away. What do you think the current electoral campaigns are lacking? What mistakes are being made in terms of approaches, in terms of messaging, for example?
Well, I mean, if you look at the two primary campaigns, which are the Kocharian campaign and the Prime Minister's campaign, they both have big negatives to deal with. There's this 800-pound gorilla in the room for each of them. In the case of the Prime Minister is the fact that he lacks credibility on foreign policy issues and on defense matters. And he should have addressed that by surrounding himself with people that have credibility on military matters or coming up with very specific plans on how he's going to strengthen the military, reform the military, and to deal with our foreign policy issues, which are ongoing and severe. In the case of Mr. Kocharian, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is, does his return mean the return of the oligarchic regimes of the past? He would have had much better results by now. He would have far more supporters if he would have clearly differentiated himself by saying, I'm a new man, I'm going to surround myself with technocrats, and I'm not going to bring back the old thugocracy that was running the country for 20 years. He needs to distance himself from that, and he has clearly not done that. In fairness to him, yesterday he sort of moved in that direction by sort of distancing himself from the Serge years, saying I have nothing to do with the Serge Sarkisian years, and talking about the positives from his time and saying that no one in my family has been accused of corruption, in comparison to Mr. Sarkisian. So what they're not doing is the third of the country that is the swing voters, and the swing voters in this country are younger, more affluent, above average women, and urban. Neither of these campaigns have done anything to appeal to them, and what they have done is essentially to work on their base and reinforce their base rather than working on any of these swing voters.
And a lot of people have been talking about recent polls conducted. One is entitled Gallup MPG. It's forecasting that Robert Kocharian's Armenia Alliance can form a government after the election. So what can you tell us about this poll?
Oh, that's nonsense. There's two Gallups. There's the real one of the United States and there's a fake one, which they're constantly in a lawsuit with each other. This Gallup that is actually owned by Serge Sarkisian's son-in-law, Michael Minasian, is they do a lot of these it's a payola polling operation. You pay them and you get the results that you want. They work on a lot of the Central Asian countries and with really absurd results for whatever the government is in power. So their polling really has no credibility.
And of course, Armenia is also experiencing a border crisis. There's the POWs issues in Karabakh. Many are saying, though, that all sides are kind of on hold until the elections. So what does that say about Armenia's state of affairs?
Well, I mean, there's nothing different from our state of affairs in any other democratic country. And right before the election, everything freezes until the elections happen because no one wants to deal with a government that could be going out of power. Everything will freeze until the election, and that's just part of the normal democratic process. I don't think there's anything unusual about that.
And many people are talking about polarization now with the Nikol and Robert Kocharian movements kind of dividing the nation. Family members are falling out with each other, friends aren't speaking to each other. What can you tell us about polarization in Armenia?
It means that we're unbossed and a free people. These kinds of divisions are normal. Unlike our enemies, we're a free people and we do as we please. And the yelling and screaming and people fighting in families or fighting in workplaces, that's the sound of freedom. And if you don't understand it and appreciate it, you really don't know much of anything about the political process.
And any predictions, Eric, for June 20th?
I think the big X factor in this election is turnout. And specifically the turnout among swing voters. If they don't, what do they do? Do they come out and vote? Do they make a decision? Or do they just say, the hell with the process, I'm not going to vote? I suspect a lower turnout will help the Prime Minister because his base is more solid and more enthusiastic about voting. And a bigger turnout probably hurts him because more people will come out to vote for change. The only other thing outside of that that's a near certainty is the fact that the Prime Minister will finish first and Kocharian will finish second. The issue is the spread, And lastly, which of these third, fourth, fifth parties makes enough of a case to be able to make it to the parliament? Is it the regional parties like Tsarukyan's? Is it Aram Sarkisyan? Who is it that makes the breakthrough? Or is it Marukyan's party, Bright Armenia? So those are the X factors. And I think the reason that the prime minister is likely to finish first is there's never been a poll that has shown him in second place. And secondly, he is the only one among all of these people that has more positives than negatives. And the biggest indicator of who people would vote for is that positive-negative break. So the likelihood of someone who actually has more supporters than detractors finishing second against people who have far greater negatives is not very high. So those are the only things that I would predict. If I was to guess, I think we're looking at the Prime Minister's party coming in somewhere in the mid-20s, mid to high 20s to low 40s if the turnout crashes. And Kocharyan's coming in somewhere at the low end of 15, high end of 25. And the rest, if the spread is correctly, if there's enough of a spread for people to get above 5%, we might have as many as 3 other parties in parliament, or we might just have another one. Just one party in parliament if the other parties just eat up each other's votes at 3 or 4%, and which would be unfortunate because I think that would not be reflective of the country.
Well, Eric, thank you as always.
Thank you very much.
And continue following CivilNet for the latest developments on the June 20th elections in Armenia.